Hello, it's Thursday. We're going in. Welcome once again to the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast that offers hyperbole-free discussion and objective discussion. In fact, I forgot that bit of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, frankly, my dear, he does not give a damn. It's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
It's a professional start here on the best movie podcast ever. I can't even remember if I said that in the intro. That's how bad I am at this. Yeah. Anthony, how you doing?
I'm doing well. That was my favorite intro. Even though you used the Step Brothers one for me last week, I think that was my favorite one you've done so far, to be honest with you.
I'll be honest with you, Anthony. I'm right. The well is dry on these. Like, I'm scraping the barrel.
Yeah, we've already went through every quote from a film ever.
Yeah. There can't be that many more left, surely.
No, it's not.
Shawshank Redemption. I couldn't even tell you a line from Shawshank Redemption, to be honest. I don't like that movie as much as a lot of people seem to.
I really like it, actually, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
I will say this for Shawshank Redemption. Like, I saw that movie well after everyone said they loved it, and I did come to that movie kind of being like, all right, let's see what the fucking fuss is about here. And therefore, I didn't dislike it, but I was a bit like, whatever, as a result.
Oh, really? Oh, I really liked it. Red was here. They want to know, or whatever they call it. That's something you could say. But yeah, no, I really liked Shawshank Redemption. We're straight into the movie talk here, Konrad.
Yeah, we're on brand here at the Best Movie Podcast ever. Yeah. And that's the kind of critical analysis you can expect.
Actually, you know what? Podcast. Here's a hot take for you, right? And then we'll do a little bit more of the little rambly intro. Hot take. You didn't like Shawshank Redemption as much as everyone else because you'd already seen other films where Morgan Freeman was doing his Shawshank Redemption narrator voice.
Yeah, that's probably. I was pretty much burned out.
That was the
Morgan
OG
Freeman as the wise old character. By the time I got around to seeing that, was he in Bruce Almighty? Was he God in that?
He was God in that.
Yeah, that was probably my first introduction to Morgan Freeman playing that kind of character. So, as much as wise as his character is in the Shawshank Redemption, he's not God.
Well, in the book, he was actually an Irishman with red hair. That's why he's called Red. A little bit of trivia for you.
Oh, okay, nice. Like Hulk Hogan's originally planned character. He was supposed to be like Bruno Sammartino appealed to the Italians in New York. Hulk Hogan was initially supposed to be an Irishman with red hair to appeal to the Irish in New York.
What was his name going to be? Hulko Hogan?
He was still going to be Hulk Hogan. Yeah, Hulko Hogan. Yeah, Hulko Hogan. It's running wild on you. I apologise to all of our Irish listeners out there for my failed attempt at an Irish accent, and to Anthony.
That's all
We're doing a movie diary this week. We're talking about all the movies that we have seen since the last time we did one of these. I think we'll probably also, in fact, I'm not going to say probably, we're definitely going to be doing one of these the week after next. We might have a themed episode after that. I haven't decided yet. If you are new to the podcast, thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, on the Culture Cave, or on podcasting apps with Best Movie Podcast Ever on there. Give the video a like. I've already said subscribe. Share the video with your friends. Get chatting in the comments. But apart from that, let's talk about some movies.
Let's do it.
Right, I'm going first this week, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm the host and I get to say what we're doing. So we're going straight in. Now, Anthony, this first film that I'm going to talk about this week, I'm interested to hear, not so much, I am interested to hear what you have to say about the movie, but also about like the kind of pressure that I feel sometimes when I watch a movie like this.
Okay.
The movie I'm talking about here is Federico Fellini's 8½, which I watched on Amazon Prime. Was made in 1963. I'd never watched any Fellini before. To be honest, my experience with Italian cinema, particularly that kind of neo-realism stuff, which I didn't even really know about as a school of cinema before I watched this movie, is pretty limited. And I often find when I watch a movie like this, where it has that kind of weight of reputation behind it, I guess kind of similar to the Shawshank Redemption to a certain extent, it's really hard for me to kind of arrive at a conclusion about it, because particularly with something like this, where it's quite surrealist in places, it's sort of it's basically this movie about it's a movie about the making of itself. It's incredibly meta, and it's essentially this director who's made one successful film and he's struggling to make his next one, played by Marcello Mastroianni, who is brilliant in it.
Nice pronunciation.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to stop and toot my own horn, but I appreciate the fact that you pulled me up on it.
I mean, last week with Django, I was worried about the pronunciation of spaghetti, so you've done well there.
Mastroianni. I've ruined it now. But so like Mastroianni's Guido is the name of the character, is essentially a stand-in for Fellini in this, and he's basically this director who is struggling to make his next film, and he's being hounded by producers and writers and actors who want to know what's going on with his next movie, and he's drifting in and out of his real life and these fantasies he has about his former lovers and past events, and it's brilliantly edited and cut together in this way where he will slip into a dream, but you will see part of the dream in the real world before he gets there. So in one scene, he's in bed with his mistress and he sees his mother in the room just doing this. And then it cuts to a scene where his mother is at a cemetery wiping a window clean. And that's not to say that doesn't make sense, but going back to what I was talking about previously, it's when you watch a movie with such a heavy reputation as this and most of Fellini's work, and it has those kind of surrealist elements, I find it quite difficult to, I don't know, like critically analyze it almost. Excuse me.
But I know what you mean.
It like, to get out ahead of it, I thought it was very good. It's beautifully shot. As I say, the central performance is brilliant. There's some amazing editing, and the way the camera moves with a vibrancy you don't normally see in or that I haven't seen before in a lot of movies from the 60s. But it's I think I need some distance from this movie to really get a sense of how I felt about it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I actually felt the same kind of thing. It's maybe not as surreal, but it is quite surreal. I didn't see The Shining until quite late. And to be honest with you, it felt similar. Like these classic films, obviously not as old as the 60s, but these classic films that have such sort of reverence and also are put aside as being genius. Yeah. When you watch them for the first time, it's like you've already been told it's genius, so you have to believe that about it, and therefore you can't really analyze it properly. Same with Psycho for me, actually. Same with that.
I think as well, like Psycho is a great example of one where it makes me feel it's probably a good thing, because it makes me realize how little I know about cinema when I watch something, and it's like I need to now go and look at what else this influenced to understand how important it was at the time. And I think 8.5 is a bit like that as well. And yeah, Psycho is a great example where it's sort of like if you watch that movie now, I still think Psycho is a fantastic movie. Just watched like out of context in the modern day, but that's a movie that is enriched by an understanding of what came after it and what had come before it, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's same thing pretty much for me with Halloween. The film Halloween, like a real slasher. You know, when I watched it for the first time like 3 months ago, and I was literally like, this is slow, this is, and then I talked to a friend of mine, and he's like, No. It's because it's like it influenced this, and this. That was like the first one that they did. It wasn't you, Konrad, was it? Maybe it wasn't.
I am on record as loving John Carpenter as our long-time listeners.
It must have been you though.
So I think I do remember on. It might have been on the first one of these.
Did we talk about it on air? Did we?
We might have talked about it on the top 10 movies of all time. I'd like talking about what influenced it. But Halloween is another one of those ones where I still think that's a brilliant movie, but I'm also a big fan of horror and a big fan of John Carpenter. So I'm coming in. It's almost impossible for me to come into that without any context, to be honest.
But you don't like Children of the Corn, so.
Oh my, that movie sucks so badly.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so you ready for my first one?
Yes. Yeah, hit me.
Okay, I will say before we move on, I like that. I have actually never seen 8.5. I have heard of it. It's one of those ones that I was always daunted by, but now that you've sort of took the plunge, maybe I will too.
Well, I actually went and they're all on Prime, but I went and bought like the Blu-ray collection. So I've got 8.5, La Dolce Vita, and I Vitellini, which are like the kind of Fellini. He has loads of great movies, but I'm ready to dive into the rest of Fellini. I really enjoyed my first foray into it, but I feel like there's going to be some fans of like Italian movies in the 50s and 60s who are like, why are you talking more about him? And the fact is, I don't feel qualified to, but I did very much enjoy this movie.
Fair enough, yeah. And there is, in the town that I teach in, there is a pizza shop called La Dolce Vita. So,
oh, lovely.
There is that. Also, moving on. So, okay, my first, I'm going back in my head. I've got a lot of varied films this week, Conrad. What flavor do you want first?
Oh, what are the options?
Well, we've got a comedy. We've
Okay.
got more of a romance, drama, family type film. We've
Okay.
got a crazy sci-fi in space. We've got a low budget independent character study. We've got another low budget, slightly independent, really good dramatic film. What are you looking for?
Let's go for the sci-fi first.
Oh,
Let's
excellent.
Jump to sci-fi.
Okay, so this week I finally got around to, and I'm so happy I did because my wife has been begging me to do it for so long, and I don't even know why I was putting up so much resistance. Finally got around to watching Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which is Luc Besson, and it's based on a French comic book, of Valerian and Laureline.
Is this the one where Channing Tatum plays a dog man?
No, you're mixing that up with the Wachowskis' film, which is called Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah, that's right.
This is Valerian and the City of Thousand Planets. This is basically, now even though this is based on comic books from like 50 years ago. This is Luc Besson. Basically, Luc Besson said that this was his dream project. This is what he always wanted to make. And in fact, there's design elements of the Fifth Element that he based on the world of this comic book.
Oh, okay,
right?
Awesome.
So basically, it's a high concept fantasy sci-fi. With multiple alien races, multiple planets, multiple space stations, that sort of thing. So it's a bit like a Star Wars, Star Trek, but it's its own thing, you know. So, in my opinion, this genre, and I was saying this to my wife, this type of genre where it's very much Star Warsy genre. There's it's hardly any come out that are not members of one or two franchises. The fact that we're getting a new story with a new world, it's like we're getting these days. We're getting more and more fantasy worlds. Well, I'd love to see more fantasy sci-fi worlds. You know what I mean? Anyway, it follows the story of Valerian and Laureline, and Valerian is a major. I think Laureline is a sergeant, and they basically go around and do the bidding of the Navy and take down the bad guys. And I think the comic books are based on these two characters, and they go around just on loads of different adventures. This follows one particular adventure where it's called the City of a Thousand Planets because basically the opening of the film starts with a montage of building the International Space Station. And then as more countries get into space, it's like African countries, Asian countries, they all come in, and the space station gets really big. But then aliens start coming, and like there's a lot of alien cultures, and they join on as well. And eventually the space station gets far too big that they have to actually let it go from Earth's gravity, and they just push it out into the universe.
All right, yeah, I'm not going to question the physics of that. That seems difficult to achieve, to be honest.
Well, I think it was so far in the future, like they sent out little missiles that like joined onto it and then pushed it.
Stick a fuck off rocket on one side of it and be like, see you later, ISS.
That's what they did, So basically, it's got sent out. That's called Alpha. It's called the City of a Thousand Planets, and it's it's a ripping yarn, is what I'd say. It's a ripping yarn. It's really fun. It's over designed to the teeth.
That's what you're getting with Luc Besson, which I say with love, because Luc Besson's one of those directors who I don't know why I've not seen more, including this, why I've not seen more of his work, because I love Fifth Element. I think he directed Alien Resurrection as well, which I is one of my guilty pleasures.
He wrote Taken.
Did he write Taken? I didn't know that.
He wrote Taken. He did Lucy, which I reviewed a few weeks ago. And he did Leon the Professional.
Yeah,
Luc Besson is amazing. Like, I would say if you like The Fifth Element, you'll like this.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah, it's very like The Fifth Element in its world and its creation, and it's almost like he finally got to make all the different aliens and stuff that he wanted to. So basically, it follows the story of Valerian and Laureline. They discover that there is sort of a race of people from a planet called Mule. The race of the people are called Pearls, and they have went extinct basically all for about 20 of them. And what happens actually is that you find out that there might be something going on in terms of the files may have been erased from the system for some reason or another, and their whole thing is like trying to figure out what's going on, this mysterious planet that was sort of on the edge of a battle which led to its apocalypse. And it's just a really good rip and yarn with a load of different characters. I wanted to mention that there's a few things. The Fifth Element is definitely a big sort of sister or brother to this film. And I could see that Luc Besson was really, really inspired by this comic book series when making The Fifth Element. However, it's of a different time than Fifth Element. In my opinion, it's much more fast-paced. It's more I don't know how you would say it. It's more of like an Fifth Element's an action film. This is more of like a up and go get 'em action film, right?
Yeah.
This is like really like this goes at a breakneck pace. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
But the one thing I want to say was that the leading actor in it, who plays Valerian, is a guy called Dane Dehaan. Have you heard of Dane Dehaan?
A name doesn't ring a bell. Let me look them up.
Right. So Dane Dehaan, if you've seen the film Chronicle, which was a film written by Max Landis, back 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He was also in Lawless. He played Cricket, the boy with the
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he played Harry Osborn and the Green Goblin in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Anyway, this fella here plays Valerian. Okay. I like this actor, right? There's two reasons why I didn't like him in this role. The first is I couldn't get the idea that he was a young Leonardo DiCaprio out of my mind, right? He just seems like Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. That's the joke. That's the jokey reason, right? Yeah. The second real reason is because he didn't sell to me that he was a leading man. Now, having said that, I like a bold choice of your lead. I like a bold choice. And I'm not going to sit here and say it should have been someone like Channing Tatum. No, I don't believe it should have. At the end of the day, this is a French-made film. You want it to be different. You want it to have a different feel. I just wasn't impressed by him in this role. I think that he almost felt like he was a child. Like his voice, he was putting on a man's voice. Like he's very much like this. We got to do this. And he sounded like he was putting on what he was, he didn't fit the role to me. Having said that, on the other side of the coin, Cara Delevingne, who plays Laureline, his partner, absolutely carried this film. She was. I absolutely loved her. I've only ever seen her in Suicide Squad before, which I was not impressed with her in because I wasn't impressed with that film in general, to be honest with you. But she was so cool in this film. She had so much charisma. She just stole the show, in my opinion. And yeah, I think Ema, my wife, told me you have to mention Rihanna. So I'll say Rihanna's in it too. I'm not going to give anything away about Rihanna's character because every part of it is just great. But you got to see it. Just come on. Looking
at Rihanna's character on the front cover, she looks like she plays a kind of mole, like a sort of 20s style.
I'll say that if we're talking about The Fifth Element, Rihanna's character sort of embodies the role of the. Not in every respect, so don't go down this rabbit hole too much. But
say Lulu Multipass.
No. There's no Lulu Dallas Multipass in this. She sort of provides the blue opera singing alien.
The one that terrifies you.
The one that terrifies me. Although Rihanna doesn't terrify me. She occupies that role in this film. But yeah, it's come on. If you love different characters like creatures, if you love rip and yarn stories, if you love fantasy sci-fi films, this is not the best one in the world. It's not going to be a 10 out of 10 for you, but it is enjoyable and it's worth a watch. It's not a perfect film by any means, but it made me think I should have watched it. It came out in 2017, and I hadn't seen it till now, and I really regret not seeing it till now.
Yeah, no, I kind of just ignored it, to be honest, despite liking Luc Besson and sci-fi as well. But maybe I'll revisit it now because that's a glowing recommendation.
Well, it is a glowing recommendation, but it's also like, me, Ema, the type of people we are. We're very much creature, costume people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, Luc Besson's the way that he realizes his worlds in the sci-fi movies he's made has always been exceptional. Obviously, like, it's not just him. I'm sure he's hiring people in his production design that can help him realize his vision. But it's if there is 10% of this style of Fifth Element's production design in this, then it will still be a fantastic movie to look at. So I'll definitely check that out.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay, right. I'm gonna go next, and I'm gonna go for something. It's not really. I guess it's kind of sci-fi. One might be able to make the case that it's sci-fi. This is 2019's Escape Room. Was a movie I watched this week. The only actors I really recognised in it were Deborah Ann Woll, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, who was in Daredevil, and Tyler Labine, who was in Tucker and Dale versus Evil. He's in loads of different stuff. It's pretty unashamedly an attempt at recreating like a multi-installment horror franchise in the vein of Saw. And it's not altogether terrible, though very little about it stands out, I think. It did incredibly well financially, though, so I expect that we're going to see another one of these. In fact, I think production has already begun on the sequel, and the ending of this movie, not to give anything away, but it pretty unashamedly sets up that there's going to be a sequel as well. It's not bad. I think the central premise is basically the same as Saw. A bunch of people get put into, like, they join this kind of weird escape room, and then it turns out that all of them have dark secrets which come to the surface as they attempt to escape increasingly maniacal and harebrained traps that end up offing a lot of them. It's not. Have you ever seen the movie Cube?
No.
It's like 99.
I have heard of it though. Yes.
So it reminded me a bit of Cube, but I guess this is me exposing my personal tastes, but when you're making a movie where the kind of driving force of the movie is seeing what the next crazy trap is that they find themselves in, and experiencing the tension of them trying to escape that, you need to have some good kills in there. You've got to have some good gore to really sell the lethality of your traps in your escape room. There isn't really any of that in this. It feels like it's really, really towing that I guess it's NC-17 in America, it'd be a 15 in the UK, that line where they can market it to teenagers, basically.
Yeah.
And evidently by the financials, they made the right choice, because, as I say, this made a lot of money. They will almost certainly make another one. I would have liked a bit more of that. But, I mean, ultimately, it's a vaguely below average first installment in what will definitely be at least a two-part franchise. And it's a promising enough opening from the director's a guy called Adam Robitel, who I've not seen anything from. But it's promising enough that it makes me cautiously optimistic for the next one. But if you're in the mood for a kind of Saw-ish thing, you could do worse than watching Escape Room.
I would imagine, though, that this first installment of this series isn't starting off with quite a critical success as Saw did. Like, the first Saw film is, objectively good.
Yeah, the first Saw film is actually a good movie. I very much enjoy the first Saw and fell off pretty soon after that. Yeah. Whereas this is more kind of like it's almost like I don't want to say it's a proof of concept, because the concept was already proved back in 2003 or whenever Saw came out. But it feels like they're kind of testing the water to see, like, are audiences ready for another Saw style thing? And I guess they are, but yeah, it doesn't compare to the first Saw at all in terms of quality.
Yeah, like, I don't know anything about it. I've heard of it. I knew it was a Saw-y thing. Even I remember on the adverts there was something to do with even a face similar to Saw. Like, Saw has the little puppet. It seems like they actually are going for a similar thing with this as well.
Yeah, there's like very much like faces talking, being like, let's play a game, and like, I think the last line of the movie is literally "let's play again," which is kind of like, guys, you can't just change one word in that sentence. It still sounds like the Saw one, and get away with that. Like, their lawyers are going to be on the phone, be like, excuse me, can you like change your script a little to not just steal from us?
I would actually be interested to see if the original director of Saw, James Wan, was actually a producer of this, because he does produce a lot of horror.
It could easily be. I wouldn't be. I didn't actually check. I should have, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was going from the same production company, because it feels very much like it's kind of been factory produced to a certain extent.
All right. Okay. So before moving on, I'll make one more comment.
Go on.
I'm a teacher of secondary school pupils. This is a 15. If this was any good, would I not have heard them talking about it? Like, this is like, that's the market who would be going to see something like this at Halloween or whatever. I think it came out in February, but still, you know what I mean? Like, they would come in saying, "Oh my god, sir, I saw this new scary film," but no, they didn't. They weren't talking about it at all.
Passed them by. But I mean, some people went to see it because it made a lot of money. But
exactly,
it's I don't think that speaks to its quality.
Okay, no problem. My next one, I'm gonna shift the tone. Actually, I'm not gonna shift the tone yet. Shift the tone yet, because I've got a few very, very serious ones in a minute. So I'm going to go to 2016's Bad Mums.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, this is the one with Mila Kunis in it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's actually got a star-studded lineup. Mila Kunis, Christian Bale, Christina Applegate, Jada Pinkett Smith, Catherine Hahn, who was an actress who is a character actress who we don't really. She's not really given top billing in many things, but you might remember her as the sister-in-law from Step Brothers.
Yeah, she's actually I'm like very much in a Catherine Hahn kick at the moment because I've been watching WandaVision on Disney Plus.
Oh, is she in that?
Yeah, she plays a neighbor in that. So yeah, she's great. She's always really funny.
Yeah. So she is funny. Like I will say, when I first started watching this, I have to admit I don't like that I'm bringing this film here because I did watch it in two halves. So there is that proviso to this. Okay.
Oh my God.
I know. I don't usually do that, but I did watch it in two halves. So I went to bed at like 11:30 one night, expecting that I was going to stay up and watch the whole thing. I just wasn't tired yet or whatever. But I went to bed after half an hour of the film because I hadn't laughed once. Tell a lie, I laughed once, right?
Okay.
But
not promising though for half an hour.
No, but by the end of the film, it won me over. I don't know if it hit the 5-laugh test. If I'm honest with you, I don't know if I got 5 laughs out of it. But it was entertaining enough to get me over the line. By no means a brilliant film. It did very, very well financially. And I'm talking like to the point where they had a second one out, Bad Mums at Christmas or whatever, and now they're having another one coming out with all of their mums called Bad Mums. So I'm not even lying. That's true. It basically follows the story of Mila Kunis' character Amy, and Amy finds out that her husband's cheating on her. And she has always lived up to this idealist idea of a mum. You know, she's been perfect, and it's causing her mental health to go through the floor.
Yeah.
So she decides one day that, you know what, I am going to be a bad mum, and I'm going to not care anymore. And as you can tell, that wasn't a great plan. But throughout the film, she sort of learns that, you know, we're all bad mums, you know, and we're sort of all able to.
The real bad mum was the friends we made along the way. Exactly.
So, you know, the whole thing. Let me just say this, right? The film is a comedy in the style of a Will Ferrell, sort of Seth Rogen-y type improvisation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the writers of The Hangover who made this.
Well, that's what I was going to build up to, Konrad. So the idea is, right, it's that, but it's in a women's world where the messages are very much around being mothers, around giving mothers their due. A lot of just random mentionings of problems mothers have, and it really feels like someone who wanted to do a TED talk wrote a film instead, right? That's what it feels like to me. Having said that, I'm very much for the rights of mothers. You know, my wife is a fantastic mother, and she works very hard and all this sort of thing, right? Having said that, it was very on the nose. It was very on the nose, and I expected, when I looked up after watching the film, I was expecting female writers and directors. So when I found out that these were two men who had done something like The Hangover, who had written and directed this mom propaganda piece, I was like, what's going on here? What's going on? Like, there's not even a mother on the in the writers, you know?
It sounds like, I mean, my partner does actually quite like this movie, but it sounded like it was trying to do a kind of Bridesmaids thing with like a kind of female empowerment gross out comedy or kind of
Bridesmaids does it way better.
Yeah, well, I think Bridesmaids was I think at least partially written by Kristen Wiig. So I think, not that, you know, you don't have to be like a woman to write like women well in comedy, but it definitely doesn't hurt to actually have a female voice on the writing team when you're trying to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, to be honest with you, it's just the style of it as well. Like, it's just the improvisational. Like, there was literally, this is really becoming out of date, this type of comedy for me. Like, there was literally a scene where they're listing types of mums, which is fine, right? But they're like you know, fat mums, skinny mums, and they're listing them all. It went on for over 45 seconds. And it was so obvious that it was like they're just letting the actors go. Yeah. And like they kept cutting to different takes of them doing the different things or the different, and it's like I can imagine in the editing thing, and they're like, we've got over 45 seconds in here. Keep it in, it's gold, you know.
That has been, I mean, I'll raise my hand and say I found this scene funny when I first saw it, but I placed the blame for that squarely at the feet of the incredibly poorly aged do you know how I know you're gay scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin? Like that I feel like was the moment where they were like, this is all gold.
Yes.
Let's stick it all in.
Yeah,
and I you know, when I was 15 or whatever, like I did find that funny, and obviously it has aged incredibly poorly now, and that's not something that we should really be laughing about anymore. But I feel like that was the moment where a generation of writers and editors was like, we don't need to put jokes in here. Just let funny people be funny, and we can cut it together in the editing room. And it so rarely works.
Yeah, like exactly. And to be honest with you, the editors are at fault a bit here as well, or mostly for me, because there's even moments between when they're saying the things where they'll sort of come into the next one a second too early, and they're sort of sitting there and they're like, Mom's like this, you know, and it's just very strangely edited. I will say, Christina Applegate plays a fantastic head of the parents committee or whatever you call it in America. I don't know what but basically she plays the head parent of this like committee in school, and she has to organize the bond sales and everything. And she's like the real bad guy. Like she's a real piece of work, this woman, and she's just. You can just tell Christina Applegate is having so much fun in this role. You know, she's basically the antagonist of this film, and it's just absolutely fantastic.
It's always good to see Christina Applegate having fun in something, because I like her. She's a good actress.
Yeah, no, she was brilliant in this film. I will say about her. Having said that, overall, like it was all right. As I say, it entertained me enough to get through. The comedy that they were going for wasn't striking with me all the time. Sometimes it was. Let me be honest. The only laugh that I had in the first half of the viewing was Catherine Hahn, who is hilarious. Yeah. Catherine Hahn, when they were going in, like their version of going mad was to go into a shopping center, like a what do you call it, like a Tesco or a food shopping center, and they started like just like chugging cereal and chugging milk and turning like a whole thing of milk into a White Russian, you know. Anyway, they're just walking through. The thing that got me to laugh out loud was when they were walking through one of the aisles. Catherine Hahn just stops, gets like a janitor who's literally like 80 years old, and just turns around and just starts kissing him, like starts going to town on him. Yeah, and I just thought that just got me. That part got me, like, to be honest.
Yeah, no, she's good at being a very like sexually aggressive female, as we learned in Step Brothers, and it sounds like she's reprising that role here.
Yeah, she very much is. Yeah, and I thought it was good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, one to look out for. I have heard relatively good things about that, to be honest.
Well, I wouldn't give it a glowing recommendation in any respect. It entertained me enough to watch it through. Oh, I will say before we go, I'll be very, very quick. About 30 minutes in, whenever Mila Kunis has broken bad, so to speak, and she's like a bad mum now, she's gonna go out to look for a fella, go out on the pool. Oh, yeah. And they decide that they have to make her look sexy, right?
Okay.
And like
Mila Kunis needs help in that department.
Yeah. So the whole film so far, she's been really made up, you know, full makeup. She's been really fitted like suits, you know. And I'm just like, this. If you're gonna do a transformation scene, you've got to at least put glasses on her. That's what films have taught us.
Yeah, you take the glasses off, you let the hair down. This is how it works, guys.
Yeah, but there wasn't like I was like, what? Like what? Anyway,
that's one of my. I don't know where I stand on that. It's a trope that I have some time for, like the clearly attractive woman who goes through the most minor of makeovers. It's always a woman as well who goes through the most minor of makeovers and then comes out in a sparkly dress, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" And and most of the time it's no transformation whatsoever. It's like, yes, they are clearly an attractive person. Like, why is anyone surprised by this?
In this case, it was literally no transformation.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say this last thing. Then we'll move on to your next one. I would have loved to see more Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Pinkett Smith was, I think she had like 4 lines. I would have loved to see more. Yeah.
Anyway. The only thing I remember Jada Pinkett Smith from is the beginning of Scream 2. Like I couldn't name you another film.
You've not seen the Matrix 2?
I have seen the Matrix 2.
She's the captain of the other ship. So the Nebuchadnezzar is the main ship. She's the captain of the other one.
Oh, okay, maybe I've just scrubbed her from my memory because that film wasn't great. It was okay. That's something for another episode. Right, okay. So I suspect you've got some serious films coming. Yeah. So my next one, I'm going to talk about a film that I was quite surprised by. Actually, I thought it was going to be a kind of farcical comedy, and it ended up being a bit more serious than I anticipated, and actually something that I really enjoyed. And that's 2019's Jojo Rabbit. By Taika Waititi.
Unbelievable film.
So,
I saw it in the cinema 3 times.
So I went into this with pretty low expectations, to be honest, because I had heard the general the general discourse I had heard around this was that it wasn't great, that it was a bit slow, and it didn't really know what kind of movie it wanted to be. And to a certain extent, I do understand that, because I think this movie was mismarketed. I think I went into it expecting it to be like a kind of Mel Brooks farcical comedy, like a Blazing Saddles, and it's really more of a kind of coming of age drama with some funny bits in it. But as a coming of age drama, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I loved the way it was shot. There's lots of these kind of like wide angle shots of characters doing ridiculous things, which were really reminiscent of Robert Yeoman's work on Wes Anderson movies. Like that, they kind of allow the funny thing to happen in wide because it's a lot funnier than like cutting between it. And that so it really reminded me of stuff like Rushmore and Moonrise Kingdom, which compounded that kind of coming of age theme of the main character's journey from being a Nazi to not being a Nazi.
It's always the best transition.
It is. It's a great, like, as far as character arcs go, that's a good one. And funnily enough, I don't know if you'd heard this, but by the sounds of things, maybe you hadn't heard this criticism when you went into it, but a big criticism I'd heard of this movie before I saw it was that the movie is too sympathetic towards its Nazi characters. And I hadn't heard that at all. Yeah, I for some, maybe it was just running in different movie critical circles or whatever, but I'd heard that quite a lot, and that's what I was expecting, and I don't really agree with that at all. I think Sam Rockwell plays like a really interesting character. He's sort of a military man who at the beginning is already very clearly he doesn't care about the party ideology, and he has a clear redemptive arc as well. And every other Nazi character in this movie is a subject of ridicule. You've got like Rebel Wilson doing Rebel Wilson stuff, which to be fair did make me laugh a few times. Stephen Merchant doing a pretty good Gestapo performance, which
Heil Hitler.
Yeah, that joke became like was one of those things that was like funny at first, then it stopped being funny, and then it started being funny again. That's the end of it.
Because that's so good.
Third time they get so for those of you who haven't seen it, there are 5 Gestapo officers that come to investigate Jojo's house, and they when they walk in, each one of them says Heil Hitler, and Jojo needs to say Heil Hitler back to them, and then they do the joke again when Sam Rockwell's character walks in, and then again when his assistant / lover walks in, and then a 4th time when the Jewish girl who is pretending to be Jojo's sister walks into the room. And I couldn't believe they did it 4 times or 3 times. I can't actually remember how many times they did it, but I couldn't believe they did it as many as they did, but it became funny again. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really touching. The ending left a lump in my throat. I think I don't think they should market it as a comedy.
I do agree with you there. It is more of a mix. I didn't hear anything negative about it before going to see it at all. I wouldn't even say the things you said were negatives. I suppose they were, but I am a huge Taika Waititi fan.
Yeah, I think he's great.
And I knew going into it that I was going to love it. You know, it's one of those things that I knew I was going to love it. So no, I didn't think. I will say I think that Thomasin McKenzie, who plays the Jewish girl, I thought she was fantastic in this, and I'd seen her in a film that I wasn't too hot on, to be honest with you, which was Leave No Trace, which was a film. It was a film with her and Ben Foster about them going. It was sort of a very. The whole thing was a metaphor for mental health, but it was about them going and living in the wild and eventually trying to acclimatize back to nature, but back to society. But which I thought it was okay. But anyway, but in Jojo Rabbit, she was absolutely fantastic in this, and I just wanted to point her out. Also, the little fella who plays Jojo, Roman Griffin Davis. I said to Ema, like, come on, he's got to be getting some sort of Oscar something here, because he does a
lot of the heavy lifting in this movie.
He's the main character.
I'm assuming he's like 10 when this was made. And
really young.
He gets a lot of the dramatic, the heavy dramatic stuff rests on his shoulders, and I think he does a really good job with it.
And there's a moment which will not spoil because it is probably the most heart-wrenching moment of the whole film. There is a moment where his acting has to be perfect, and it is. He's able to shift perspectives or shift emotions so perfectly straight away, and it's.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just gonna say, and he just sells that moment so well.
Yeah, and I think that was the moment actually for me. Again, I won't say what it is, but that was the moment for me where I was like, oh, okay, this is really going dark in what it's depicting here. Like, obviously, you're making a movie about the persecution of the Jews in, I don't actually know if they ever say what town it is, but a German town during the Nazi years, and in the midst of World War II. And that sounds like it's going to be fairly dark, but I feel like the trailers made this out to be something that was going to be like, oh, we're just going to laugh at the Nazis and that'll be what this is about. But it does really go to some dark places, and I was surprised by it. But as you say, the fact it goes to those places and asks him to carry the burden of conveying the weight that has to hit, or that event inflicts upon his character, is a real testimony to his acting ability. So I expect to see big things from him in the future.
Yeah, and I hope so, because he's just great.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next one is I'm glad he liked Jojo Rabbit, by the way, because that's my favorite. Probably
I really wasn't expecting to. Really wasn't expecting. Like,
one of my favorite films from that year, I think.
Yeah. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by that.
Okay, awesome. So my first one, I'm gonna go for a double bill. All right, but I'm going to go one, and then you have one, and then I'll go the other one, right? But
okay.
I watched these two films back to back because once I finished the first one, I was like, right, I need more of that in my life, right? So the first, and I'm a glutton for punishment is basically, you'll find out why.
Terminator Genesis and Terminator, the other one that they made like 2 years ago.
No, the Goofy movie. It's so the first one is 2013's Short Term 12.
Okay.
Which is an independent film written and directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. He's not that much of a cretin. I like this fella. But basically, right? It's a film which speaks a lot to me because it's about people who work with underprivileged youth. Okay, and it's very much one of those low budget, independent style films, which is like just a character study. And it's just like, well, in this one actually ends up being a multiple character study, but it's because it's such a great ensemble cast in it. But it's made for less than $1 million, and basically it's an independent film that focuses on Grace, who's played by Brie Larson, and she works with underprivileged children. Grace is clearly very competent at her job, and all these children that she works with, they come from troubled homes. It's almost like. It's kind of like an orphanage, but it's a bit more than the general orphanage depiction in film. You know what I mean? It's more of what you would imagine an orphanage being these days. You know what I mean? It's more of like, there's people there to help you. There's like, mental health support. There's, basically just really helping these kids out. And Grace is clearly very competent at her job. And at the start of the film, she's an image of like compassion and empathy. But throughout the story, we come to learn her backstory, which I'm not going to flesh out here for you, but she come to learn her backstory, which it manages not only to give you more respect for the way that she deals with the kids, but it also helps us understand where her deep understanding of the kids' needs comes from. That's all I'll say. There's probably quite a bit in that you could take from it, but basically, she's a troubled person in herself, and she always puts the children first, is what I love about her. And it's basically a character study of her with this great ensemble cast around her. There's a fantastic performance by an actor called Lakeith Stanfield. And I'm not sure if Lakeith Stanfield is a rapper in real life. I'm not sure. But in this film, he plays a young man who's 17, about to leave the home. And he basically isn't liking the idea of leaving. He's come to learn this is his way of life.
Yeah.
And you can imagine if you've lived in these homes for a lot of your adolescence, whenever you then are 18 and you have to go out into the real world and sort of have those shackles taken off you, it can be very daunting. And basically he writes a few... there's a very, very impactful, powerful scene where he writes a rap and sings a rap to one of the staff members about his time and how he feels about leaving and about his family and about his mother. And it's so impactful and it's so amazing that I just was like, okay, this is a great film, even just from that one scene, you know.
Yeah, he's amazing, Lakeith Stanfield. I feel like he's an actor who is kind of flying under the radar a bit at the moment. But have you seen Sorry to Bother You?
Oh, sorry, no, I haven't. But I've just realized that he's in Get Out. Yeah,
he is in Get Out. Yeah, he's the guy who gets abducted right at the beginning of Get Out, and then comes back later in a slightly different role. Let's say, But Sorry to Bother You is what if you you would actually, I think you very much like that movie, and Lakeith Stanfield is the lead in it, and he is fantastic in that. So hearing that he's in this like makes me very excited to go and see this actually.
Yeah, and this was actually, well, this is actually, it's an interesting story because this actually started out as a short film by the same director, right? And then what happens a lot is when they get a short film and they make the short film, they're able to expand on that idea and write it into a feature film. Then they can use that short film to get funding. Yeah. So Lakeith Stanfield's first ever acting role was in the short film in 2008, Short Term 12. Then he was in another short, and then his first actual acting role in a full-on feature was this film. So this basically is a guy that this director used in a short film, was like, yeah, this guy's great, and then brought him with him to the big leagues, basically.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But also, the same director directed Just Mercy, which was out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Just Mercy is one of those movies that I've heard nothing but good things about, and I really want to see. And I didn't realize that this was the same director, but again, that makes me very excited to go and see this because I've heard really good things about Just Mercy.
Yeah, Just Mercy's, I really like it as well. But I will say as well, there's I said this is a serious tone, but there is a lot of those serious elements of the film are like sort of weighted very, very well with comedic points. So like there's Rami Malek is in this film, and he plays he gives a great measured performance as like a naive but entertaining character called Nate. And he's a university student who's taken a year out, and he wants to go and work at the home to volunteer with underprivileged kids. But to give you an idea of the comedy that's in the film, he's very naive. There's two moments that are really funny to me, which I'm going to point out. But there's plenty of moments with this character that are great. The first one is whenever he first comes to the home, they have him in front of all the youth, and they say, "This is Nate. Nate, why don't you tell the kids something about yourself?" And he's like, "Hi, my name's Nate. I've always wanted to work with underprivileged kids." He says that to them, and then the character, what do you call it? Lakeith Stanfield just goes, just like, "What do you mean underprivileged kids?" There's a whole thing there. So that's part of the sort of awkward comedy of it. There's another moment. There's another moment where there's a kid gets hit while they're playing a game of baseball. Gets hit. And they're beaten or whatever. So then they're sort of calming him down, and the female member of staff goes, "Are you okay?" And Nate, Rami Malek's character, goes, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just didn't expect them to be hitting each other." And it's like, "No, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him." So there's that sort of comedy to it. Okay. Brie Larson is absolutely fantastic in it. Brie Larson is amazing, and I didn't mention too much about her here. Because I had only ever seen her in Just Mercy. She's in Just Mercy, but I'd also seen her in Captain Marvel. And obviously that's a very different role than this. But
have you not seen her in Room?
We'll get back to that. Okay. So that's why I didn't want to mention too much of her here, because we've just given a bit of a spoiler what my next one is. Yeah. Because I'll be talking a lot about her there. But basically this film is just a patient, sensitive drama. It shows equal respect to all of its characters. And it's a great ensemble. From very young children to 18-year-old to adults as well. I really, really recommend it. It's you have to know what you get signed in for. It is very play-like, I will say, because it's a very low-budget independent film. Do you know what I mean by that? There's not going to be a car chase in it, but it's but it's really good.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll definitely check that out. That cast is absolutely stacked, and that director is someone I've heard nothing but good things about. So that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to coming back to Room in a second as well, because I very much like that movie. Okay, I'll quickly fly through. How many more have you got? Two
more.
Okay, cool. Right, I'll do one of mine, then we'll do one of yours, and so forth. So I'll do one that I was bit mixed on first.
Okay.
That is so I'm quite a big fan of a Japanese director called Takashi Miike, who has been working for decades now. He's famous for doing very violent stuff. So he did Ichi the Killer. I think he did The Audition in the 90s as well, which is one of his that I've never seen. But in the last 10 years, he's done 3 Chambara movies, which is like kind of Japanese samurai cinema. He did, and this is the first of the ones he did. So this is the remake of Harakiri, called Harakiri Death of a Samurai. It's a remake of a 1962 movie, which I haven't actually seen. I really like the other 2 that he did in the 2010s. So that's 13 Assassins and Blade of the Immortal. They have a lot. They're very tropey, but they're normally beautifully presented, and the stories are pretty good. And he's very good at finding leading actors to front his films. I think this one sits somewhere between 13 Assassins and Blade the Immortal in quality. It is good, but it dips a lot in the middle. So it starts as a lot of Takashi Miike.
What was the name of this one?
It's Harakiri, Death of a Samurai from 2011.
Yeah.
So this has got some, as a lot of Takashi Miike films do, some very violent scenes in it. So the bit where a guy, essentially a person, it's all about a character who comes and performs what's called a suicide bluff to a lord, where they come and say, I want to commit ritual suicide in your courtyard, expecting the lord to be like, no, don't do this, I'll give you some money, and they go away. And it's basically a way for Ronin to make some money. And the lord calls the bluff of this young man, and he's forced to disembowel himself with what turns out to be a wooden sword, because he's sold his metal swords to pay for stuff that we will find out about. And then another person comes and asks to do the same thing, and it turns out these 2 people knew each other, and it's this story about revealing what this first character who killed himself, what drove him to do this. It's a good movie. It's beautifully presented. I think it did start losing me a bit in the middle chapter, where it's explaining the backstory of these characters. I think the framing device of knowing one of these characters has died should really give everything that you see in the middle act some poignancy, but the pacing's a bit off, and I didn't really buy the characterization of the character who dies, which meant that it does just drag a bit in the middle. But there's a lovely, like a really, really nicely shot final fight scene when we come back to the present. It has all the tropes of Chambara. So you've got this sort of snow gently falling down on this guy's dark kimono as he gets ready to fight a bunch of guys, and lots of, actually, it's not that bloody, to be honest, the final fight scene, but it's not bad. I would say Blade of the Immortal is better, but Harakiri Death of a Samurai is pretty good. I need to go and watch the original though, because apparently the original is an absolute classic of samurai cinema, which I do very much enjoy.
Yeah, so I think last week about when we were talking about Django. Yeah. I do intend to go back and watch a lot of samurai, and the fact that, like, you know, I'd be interested to watch some old samurai as well as some new samurai, in the way that I like to sort of mix and match between old Western and new Western. I'm interested to see the differences and the similarities, but it's something that I'm not very in on at all at the minute. But I very much am looking, like, basically, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. That's basically what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, there are samurai in that movie, 100%. But I mean, you really can't go wrong. I know I've banged on about it a lot on this, but you really can't go wrong with Akira Kurosawa. Like Yojimbo, Rashomon isn't really Chambara, but Rashomon is a great movie anyway. But Yojimbo, Sanjuro, Throne of Bloods is, and the good thing about Kurosawa as well is a lot of his movies are just Shakespeare adaptations. So Throne of Blood is just Macbeth, Ran is just King Lear. So he basically takes these. Takes these well trodden tales and dresses them up with the sort of Chambara trappings of samurai cinema, and his are amazing. And Takashi Miike's stuff is it is derivative to a certain extent. There's I feel like, in much in the same way that westerns westerns kind of are very referential as well. The Chambara has its set of parameters and what it will talk about and what it will look like, and it doesn't often stray from that and possibly even less. Actually, I don't want to paint myself as an expert of it, but if you look at westerns, you have kind of three very distinct phases of westerns, or maybe a little bit more than that, but you've got like the sort of early John Ford stuff, which is all like out on the range, everything's beautiful and technicolor, and it's not that dark. Even if people are dying, it's all kind of it's presented as quite hopeful and quite adventurous. And then you get into the spaghetti westerns of the 60s and 70s, where it starts getting very bloody and very action focused, and then you go to kind of Unforgiven in like the early 90s, where it becomes almost this kind of post-Western deconstruction of the Western tropes. You know, like Unforgiven is essentially what would have happened to Clint Eastwood's The Man with No Name in the Dollars trilogy if he grew up to be a man in his 60s or 70s. You know, what kind of broken individual would he be? And I don't get the impression that Chambara ever really had that. I could be completely wrong, and I'd be fascinated to know from anyone who knows better than I do whether Chambara did have those kind of changing sensibilities in the genre, but certainly there are a lot of similarities between the two genres. So if you like westerns, you probably will like samurai movies.
Yeah, but it also might be down to the actual historical time of the West and the samurai. Like the West came to an end because of industrialization and because of like cars, and because whereas and then eventual plane, it was a real, like, whereas samurai took place a lot earlier on, like maybe there wasn't that natural third state of film to be made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that as well. Like there wasn't really the way, I think the way that samurai lived is kind of still treated with some reverence, because there isn't that fodder to deconstruct. You know, they aren't just rolling around shooting lots of people in a way where I guess some of the characters are, but I feel like the way cowboys were presented in like the 30s through to the 60s, there's a lot of hard drinking and hard fighting that should really have more ramifications for those characters, and outside stuff like True Grit, you're not really seeing it, whereas samurai there's less of that. There's more like kind of a reverence for the sort of quiet nobility of the samurai that's always just consistent throughout the genre.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I need to check out some samurai. Maybe I'll try and watch a samurai next week.
I'll show you. Well, I mean, yeah, but like when we get together, I'll show you Yojimbo, because Yojimbo is easy to watch and it's awesome. And you see a man getting his hand cut off, which is what Star Wars was referencing in that first movie.
Okay, yeah, can't wait. Okay, so all right, so my next one is Room, which
nice.
You'll not be surprised to know. So basically, after I watched Short 12, I was like, "Here, this Brie Larson woman, she's pretty good. Like,
she's all right. Yeah,
she's all right." I was like, "Right, I'm gonna watch it," because I think maybe Ema was having a nap, and I was just letting her sleep on until whenever. That's what I do. But basically, I was like, "Right, I've just watched Short 12, quite deep, quite emotional. I'm in the right headspace for it. Let's just put it on." Yeah. And I did what I do quite a lot in my life. Maybe I'm talking 10, 15 times a year. I watch a film on my own. I love it so much that I convince Ema to watch it again with me on the same day. I watched Room twice in one day.
That's great.
For anyone who doesn't know, it did cause quite a stir when it came out back in 2015. Brie Larson actually won an Oscar for her role in it.
Yeah,
I'll read you the log line because it's probably the best way to sum up, and it's a way of me saying this is not spoilers, because this is a log line that is put on IMDb. It's what the trailer showed. This is basically what it is, right? Held captive for 7 years in an enclosed space, a woman and her young son finally gain their freedom, allowing the boy to experience the outside world for the first time. Mm-hmm. So that is the logline. That's how this film is set up. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you the details of how it happens. If you've seen the trailer, you probably know. But basically, it's a really interesting, intimate film where a lot of it is set in the one room, and with Brie Larson and a young boy who I think was 8 when he did it.
Yeah, but Jacob Tremblay is unbelievable in this movie. One of the best performances from a child actor I think I've ever seen in this movie.
And the way he sells his ignorance and his naivety, like he's been told stories when he was like 2 or 3 by his mom that he now remembers as a 5-year-old, but he's getting to the age where he's a bit too old to believe these things. He's never known anything else. But like he has a whole world built up, and he narrates the film in this really sort of haunting way for me, because he's talking about, outside the room there's space, and then through skylight. And one of the absolute brilliant, it's really strange to say this in a film like this, but it's world building. One of the really interesting world building elements to it is the fact that they talk about bed, they talk about room, they talk about rug. They don't talk about the rug or a rug. It's always just rug, room.
It's like fixed nouns, because that's his only point of reference for these things.
There's only one of the thing. And I the first time I watched it, it was a bit. I was thinking to myself, but why is the mum saying that as well? Why is she saying room? And I realized, I'm an idiot to even question that. There's things my kid has been saying since he was 2 or since he was 1.5 that I say to him now. Like, if the young boy called Jack was saying these things like room and rug, the mother would naturally pick that up as well and say that back to him. It's 100% realistic.
It's a shared language as a coping mechanism for the situation they find themselves in as well. And I think this movie could have been just the first part. The pre-escape part. I think that's the thing that I love most about Room, is this is an hour and 58 minutes long, and what they do in that hour and 58 minutes. I've talked about movies on this podcast in the recent weeks that have been longer than this and have failed spectacularly to achieve even 30% of what this movie achieves. Like, you essentially have the mother and her son living in this room in captivity, and almost like this kind of tense thriller climax to that, as they sort of try and figure out a way to escape. Really
heart-wrenching. I'm going to say, whenever they did it, I cried. Like, I cried both times.
Even knowing, that they will eventually get out, because that's very clear in the setup of the film. In the setup of the film, it's still very tense. The actual escape attempt. But then you have this whole other hour of movie, which is just them dealing with trying to reacclimatize to the world around them, and you have elements of the plot that have no right to be there and be as good as they are. Like this idea of her parents' marriage has fallen apart.
William H. Macy is great.
William H. Macy doesn't actually get that much to do in terms of lines on the page, but this kind of projected distaste for Jacob Tremblay's character, because he's a child of the
rape essentially.
He's a child of rape, and I can't remember his name now, but the stepfather character plays this brilliantly understated, sensitive character. It's just The Room is a phenomenal movie. I cannot recommend this movie high enough, and I'm so pleased that you liked it.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I recommended it to my mom. My mom watched it straight away. I always knew I was going to like it, but I just didn't know whether it would be I like what they did. It's like a 6 or 7 out of 10, or it's I love this film 9 out of 10. Like that's what it is to me. I will rewatch this film multiple times in my life. Yeah. It is going to go in the pocket of will make you cry every time. It deals with such dark matter. Through the eyes of a 5-year-old child, and it makes your heart just go out to him. So, and then there's a moment. I'm not going to say anything because it is quite late in the film, but there's a moment where a news, like a journalist or interviewer, asks Brie Larson's character a question that really drives at an issue, which it basically just made me want to punch that. Now it was a female journalist, so I wouldn't, but it made me physically want to just rebel against this woman on behalf of Brie Larson's character, because it's just so well done. Like there's every emotion possible in this film, and it's just unbelievable. But Jacob Tremblay delivers a performance that you could just say is nothing short of unbelievable. In the moment that he escapes them, he manages to get away. My heart was in my mouth both times I watched it. I was crying both times I watched it. He's just I don't know what's. I read after it actually that they filmed this is unusual for a film, but they filmed it in chronological order pretty much because they wanted Jacob to be able to follow the character arc of his character, and sort of grow as he sort of comes out of the room and is able to move on with his life, and they wanted him to be able to grow into the performance, and it works so well, and they didn't put a foot wrong in this film. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful movie. It really is. If you haven't seen it, I don't think there's anyone that I would hesitate to recommend this movie to. It is a shame with Jacob like I talk about Jacob Tremblay now like he's a veteran actor when he's probably like 13 now. Like he's sort of
13,
been
14
around
now, yeah.
Been around for 5 years, but unfortunately since this I don't think he's made very many good movies. I haven't seen Good Boys or Doctor Sleep, but he was in The Predator, which was a shit show of a movie.
Well, apparently Wonder is quite good, but it's sort of, if you can take, I think Wonder is going to be even more than this, just emotions for emotion's sake, where he plays a deformed young boy. But I saw Good Boys, which is, if anyone doesn't know, it's basically like a Superbad type comedy written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg about boys who are like 12 years old. It's all right. It's all right. It's, you know, it's just harking back to those 2008 to 2012 comedies that didn't do it. It didn't do it nearly as well, but it's had a few laughs because there's little 12-year-old kids saying really obscene things, you know.
Yeah, that seems like the main selling point of that movie is look at these kids talking about stuff they shouldn't be talking about because they're too young for it.
Having said that, Jacob Tremblay didn't do himself a bad turn by having me see Room after that. So he went way up in my estimation.
Yeah. I mean, this is, if he does nothing else of note for the rest of his career, he's got like a great performance under his belt in Room when he's, as you say, like 8 or however old he was.
I talk about the kid from Jojo Rabbit should have got something to do with like some awards or something. How Jacob Tremblay didn't get nominated for an Oscar blows my mind. Anna Paquin got an Oscar when she was that young. Like she got an Oscar when she was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
Jacob Tremblay should have got some. He was unbelievable in this film.
Yeah, he is fantastic in this movie. It's such a natural performance from him that he deserved to win something. But yeah, I'm so glad you liked it because Room easily my favorite movie of 2015, I think, and it's still a phenomenal film.
Yeah, it's great. All right, what's your last one?
Cool. Right, last one. So a slight tonal shift for this last one for me. This is a remake. I hadn't seen it before, and much like Jojo Rabbit, I had avoided watching this because I really like the original, I should say, and was reticent to watch a remake of it. That is 2013's Evil Dead by Fede Alvarez. I love Evil Dead 1 and 2 and Army of Darkness. I think they're really seminal horror movies, and to be honest, like this is actually a really good example of how to do a remake. I was really impressed with it. It seems unnecessary at first, but it's kind of a reimagining. It has enough little nods to the original. It's got like those kind of, it has a couple of moments that apes the Sam Raimi like kind of swooping follow camera style that's used in so many different places, but not enough or not too many to feel like that's all it's doing. It very much has its own aesthetic, and there are some really gnarly gore effects in this. Like if you're not a fan of gore, do not watch this movie because like the originals are quite gory, but they're gory in like the kind of schlocky way that I quite like, where there's just like fountains of blood spraying everywhere and it's just totally ridiculous. And there's one scene where a character has their hand pinned under a car and they just pull their arm off and leave their hand behind, and they show it in close up and it's like holy shit. But it takes a lot to get me to audibly gasp when I'm watching something gory, but this movie did it plenty of times. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's really good fun. It's not amazing. Like it's kind of suffers from a problem that a lot of horror movies suffer from, where the casting and the acting is secondary to the spectacle of the violence. But I get that was kind of true of the originals as well. To be fair, like Bruce Campbell carried a lot of the, I don't want to say dramatic weight because it was mainly him just shooting things with shotguns and then saying groovy in those movies. But but he did a lot of the heavy lifting in those, and there isn't really a character to match that in this, which is probably one of the areas where they struggle to live up to the originals. But still, well worth seeing if you're in the mood for a gory as fuck horror movie.
Awesome. Again, you know me, horror's not my genre.
No, I don't think you would like this.
I dip my toes in every now and then. I would like this if I watched it with you, or I'd like it if I watched it in a group. You know, I'm probably not going to sit and watch it myself.
There is a scene where a character is convinced to cut off her own arm with a. Oh, actually, I will say Okay, so I'm going to say two things before we move on. There's a scene where a character is forced to cut off her own arm with like like an electric carver for when you're like carving Sunday dinner.
I do know those because I was looking for one like crazy on Christmas Eve. I couldn't find one.
I don't own one, so I had to do it by hand. And it turns out I am bad at carving by hand.
I wanted to be a real dad, you know?
Yeah, that's the dad job, as far as I'm concerned. My dad would never let anyone else touch the electric carver. Like, if you went near it, he'd be like, "Step back, son." He wouldn't say it in a northern accent.
Well, he's missing a trick.
Yeah, but yeah, so she's convinced to cut her arm off by like another character who's infected with a demon, and then as soon as she does it, the other character just starts laughing. It's like that is brutal. And there's a character in this who kind of incites so basically, Evil Dead is about a bunch of people go to a cabin in the woods, find a suspicious book. Some idiot reads the demonic passages from the book. It wakes up demons in the woods, and all hell breaks loose. And the character who incites that, I think, wins the award for most hilariously fucked up character in a horror movie I've ever seen. He is in no less than 3 scenes where it's like, oh, this character is obviously going to die because of the things that are happening to him, and he keeps on surviving. And every single time it's like, how is this character not dead yet? Like, you have been so badly injured at this point, which is one of the reasons why I don't think it'd necessarily be your movie, because this one character, admittedly, they kind of deserve it for waking up the demons in the woods, but I did feel very sorry for them by the end of it for the horrific violence they are subjected to.
But it's not comic violence like in Austin Powers. Yes, my leg is broken.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell.
It's beginning to smell like almonds. That is very, very bad. Yeah, it's not quite as comedic as that. Although I was cackling around about the second and third time this character got completely fucked up. I was like, it's just not your day, is it?
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm not going to say I'm going to check it out.
No.
maybe one day if we're together and it's Halloween and we're going to watch a horror film, we'll pop it on. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd probably, if I had a choice, I'd show you the original, because Evil Dead 2 is still a great movie. But if the horror fans out there, Evil Dead remake is not bad.
Okay, good stuff. Right, okay, my last one then, at breakneck speed, is 2010's Morning Glory. Do you know anything about this film?
I don't think I do.
Right, so basically this is a film by a director called, I think it's pronounced Roger Michel. Basically the director of Notting Hill, a film called Changing Lanes, Hyde Park on Hudson, which is the Bill Murray as Roosevelt film.
Okay.
Basically, this film is about Rachel McAdams stars in it, and she plays a woman who works for a TV station. And she gets fired from her job, and then she gets brought on to be a producer at a dying morning show called Daybreak. Okay. And the host of Daybreak is these two hosts are Diane Keaton and another fella. On her first day, she fires the other fella, and then she hires Harrison Ford. This
is so weird. I have seen a still from this movie in the last 2 days. I literally have seen a still of Harrison Ford and Diane Keaton sat next to Rachel McAdams. I was just like, I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, that's weird that this is the movie you've watched, and I've just seen, I saw this image.
It must have been the thumbnail on Amazon Prime, maybe.
Maybe it was. Yeah, sorry, carry on anyway. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. But basically, Harrison Ford in this film is great. Very unlike Harrison Ford, to be honest with you.
Does he play a curmudgeon of some description?
Very much so.
Who could have possibly predicted that?
Yeah, he plays a character called Mike Pomeroy, who's like a respected journalist and news anchor who's won every single award there's ever been out there, is really about serious news, political news. Okay. However, he's fallen out of favor with the big TV stations. He's sort of maybe viewed as a bit past it. He's a bit old now, but he's still on contract with the TV station. And Rachel McAdams her character decides, right, I'm going to get him on because she looks up to him and she's sort of grown up watching him on the news. And basically, she gets him on because she swindles him in a way, because he's on a contract for the next like 7 or 8 years. And she finds in his contract saying, because he has no show, because they don't have nothing for him. She finds in his contract that if he gets an official offer from the network to be on a news show, and if he doesn't accept it, then his contract will be void. So he'll lose like $6 million.
She's got him.
So she gets him, and he has to come and do it. But he refuses.
I bet he's happy about that.
Oh, it's so funny because he has to do, like, they're asking him to do, like, like cooking with the new chef that comes on, asking him to do stories about, someone's colonoscopy or whatever, and he's just like, I'm not doing that. And he keeps bringing stories, like, war in Yemen, and they're like, no, we're not putting that on the news, on the morning show. Basically, you can imagine what it's going to be though. He's gonna slowly sort of come to terms with being on this show. He's gonna see it for what it is. We talked about a little bit last week about relationships between very young women and old men not going well in my mind. It doesn't go that way. Don't worry. It's not that sort of thing. But it's all I need to say, guys. You know me. This writer also wrote with Cameron Crowe, We Bought a Zoo. That's all I can say. So
that's a seal of approval right there. Rubber stamp that.
Yeah, it's one of those films that's like, it's a comedy, drama, romance, family film. It doesn't really have a genre. I don't know. It's one of those ones where you can't really nail it down to one genre. It's kind of like I maybe would call a feel-good film, you know? And Jeff Goldblum's in it. Like Jeff Goldblum, it's back in 2010 it came out, so it was Jeff Goldblum slightly before Hollywood let him spread his wings fully. Like Jeff Goldblum now, he's literally just man spreading all over the place.
The meme of Jeff Goldblum is just like has overtaken his actual celebrity to the point where he's allowed to do anything. Yeah,
actually, to be funny, this is a funny story. Emer and I, when we were in Los Angeles, we were in LAX waiting for our plane. And I saw the back of a man's head, right? I saw his shoes. He looked like he was wearing crocodile skin shoes, right? Yeah. Really thin man, grey hair, saw from the back he was wearing big glasses. I swear to God, I turned to Emer and I said, that's Jeff Goldblum. It was his back of his head, right? He turns around, it was him. And he talked to a fan, right? A fan went over to him and said, hi, Jeff, and wanted to talk to him. He talked to them for an hour and a half, right? Other fans were coming over. And being like, can I get an autograph? He'd sign the autograph and then go back to talking to the same fan. And he was sitting down with them and all and talking to them. And he was just like doing this whole thing, And I was just like, geez, that's Jeff Goldblum.
Probably having a conversation about David Cronenberg or something like that. Like this fan had just whispered the secret code to Jeff Goldblum to get him to have a conversation with him for an hour and a half.
Yeah, so that, like, Jeff Goldblum's a character, but this film, he very much has the shackles on. He's not. This is not post Thor Jeff Goldblum. Like that was
the moment. I feel like that Thor. What was that movie called? The one with all the synth wave in it. The Taika Waititi one. I can't remember the name of it, but that I feel like that was the moment the world realized that Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, Ragnarok,
Ragnarok. That was the one. Yeah. That was the moment where the internet realized that Jeff Goldblum was one of them.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, it is what it is. I will say, last final thought. There's not much to say about it. It's a feel-good film. It's never going to be a critical, huge success. It's not going to be a waste of time. It's going to be like a Sunday afternoon feel-good film to watch with the family. But I will say before we go, someone like the writer of this film clearly thought it was going to be something that it's not, because it's not like an out-and-out rude comedy. It's like it's got funny moments, but it's very much contained. But it's called Morning Glory, for one.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with anything except for the fact that they have a morning show. That's it.
That's right? Like someone arrived at that title and then worked backwards from it to get the film.
And here's another thing. The TV station that they work at, again, I don't know why they did this, is just called IBS.
Excellent. Great joke.
It's like the person, like, they named those two things. They named the film, named IBS, and they were like, right, we're gonna write an 18s comedy here, and then like they quickly went away from that, and it's like, why did you keep IBS as the name of the channel? You know what I mean? Anyway, that's that film. That's my films for the week.
All right, that sounds like good fun, good clean fun for about a girl working hard in the city, achieving her dreams despite.
Well, actually, vast majority of my films. Actually, all of them, with the exception of Valerian, but you can even argue with that because of the character of Laureline, they were all female-centric films. And I'm here for it. I'm here for
it. Yeah, I mean, this is what the people tune in for, Anthony. Like, you're the progressive who watches movies with strong female characters in them and progressive storylines, and I watch movies where people get beaten to death with hammers.
Yeah, well, that's our dynamic.
Yeah, that is the dynamic. Yeah, I'm the one who's on a government watch list for watching horrible movies, and you're the one who watches good films like Room. Although I did watch 8.5. Actually, I did my due diligence with artistic movies this week. I was like, you know what? I've watched 8.5. I'm going to give myself Evil Dead as a little treat. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for us this week here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever. And really, as is always the case, when we've discussed all the movies that we've seen, it leaves us with only one simple question to answer. And that is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie?
I'm tempted to go Valerian, but I have to go Room.
Yeah, okay. It's a great shout. Brie Larson represented. My favourite movie is Evil Dead 2. No hammers in that one, but someone does replace their hand with a chainsaw. Tune in to next week's show, which is also going to be a movie diary. That'll be out on Thursday after this, obviously. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the section below. And yeah, thank you for listening. Share the show with your friends, like, comment, subscribe. Culture Cave on YouTube, best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps. And we will see you same time, same place next week.
And cut.